Welcome back to South Carolina. This is David Gillespie for video number 4 of the gas tank removal series. I already have the tank back in the car in this video, and then all the things that'll actually be reinstalling everything and some last minute tips. So if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button down below so that you can help our channel out. I recommend watching all these videos before you even start the process, because I made some mistakes along the way and I try to point those out, and maybe I can help you from making some of those same mistakes as well. And actually on the inside of the belt rail, I found that some of my holes didn't exactly fit that I had punched. So what I had to do was actually go and take a drill up through the middle and just re-drill that welting to make sure that the holes did hit, and they do. So for this part, I had to just shove a 1/2 inch wrench down in there to hold the nut, and then underneath I'm using the 3/8 socket to turn it on through like that. Another thing of note is when I took all the screws out of this gas tank, as I took it apart, I would put each individual type of screw in a Ziploc bag and write on it any type of description I could think of, so that I could use this screw to measure the thread pitch and the length and the diameter. And that really was helpful. So next we have to have those pan head screws that go along the cowl. And I wanted to check and make sure before I stripped anything, because I was having a little trouble getting them to fit. So the pan head screws are these here. When I say the pan head screws on the cowl, we're talking about these that go along here, okay? So these, my original screws, were fit into 7/32 right there, and it's a 24 thread pitch, 7/32 24. So I checked that with my reproduction ones, and they are the same. The only difference is the original had this little chamfer on the end of each of them, so I was having a little trouble with some of these fitting in, and I did chamfer on the side grinding wheel some of these to match the original, and they do seem to fit a little bit better. So that part, at least with Smith & Jones, is A-9001B, and that's the pan head screws for the cowl. That one's going in good. Hallelujah. These have a little washer on them as well. Okay, so back in the shop, I found my 4 C-clamps to hold the tank in, and they're pretty rusted and corroded, so I'm gonna wire brush them and repaint them black. So next, back to putting these clamps back on underneath. No, your YouTube channel hasn't turned to some hot rod channel. The only reason I had to use this grotesque green is because I was out of black paint. So, but I just use a 7/16 socket here, and try not to scratch the paint up above. So next it's time to put the cowl band back on. That's this part here, and because this was a little bit tight getting it off, I'm going to freshen up the threads on the nut and the bolt. It's 1/4 20 on the thread pitch. Okay, and so before I put this cowl band back on, I'm going to take a little of this semi-chrome polish and polish it up. It'll be easier to polish it now as opposed to when it's on the car. To make sure I put it on frontwards instead of backwards, I suppose. Let's see if I can find the hole for that. There we go. Okay, so the cowl band is back into place, praise the Lord. But now I need to make sure that I get the bolts on the inside, and as you remember, that was the least fun. So now we have the fun part of taking out all these floorboards again. All right, so now the floorboards are out, And the section that we're going to be dealing with is going to be right in here in this triangle. Okay, so now I'm down in the hole here, and I hope you can see the thread. So because I chase the threads, I'm able to kind of by hand get it up there pretty close, hopefully. Like that. And then to tighten it on down, you'll need a 7/16 open-ended wrench, and you'll just have to go at an angle and just go like that and go in short little strokes until it gets tight. So you'll have to switch the angle of the wrench back and forth to get a good grip, because there's only like a quarter a turn worth of spot you can actually grip this thing in. So after you go your quarter turn, you need to take the wrench and rotate it over, and then you can get back in there and get another 1/4 inch grip. Okay, next we need to fish all these wires through this channel under here. So I guess it's okay to go ahead and take off my masking now for the paint we had. That. Okay, I didn't do anything fancy. I just basically shoved them through. Before I move on, I wanted to show you these, the bolts under here. There's one on either side that tucks over in the corner there, and it's a nut that comes through underneath, or actually through here. I don't know if you can see that or not. So I had a comment on the last video, how do I plan on getting that nut down in there? And I'll tell you what I did. I actually drilled a hole with the drill through here, just through the gasket material. Then I pushed it by finger up to the level of this here, just right underneath the surface there. Then I took my finger with the nut and I just literally drug it right along the top, right over top of that hole, and then I just, with my fingers only, threaded it straight through there. It took 2 or 3 times, but I was able to safely get it to thread through there just with one finger through the hole here, and my other finger's hand tightening it through there. So it can be done. Take heart. With the 7/16 socket, I was actually able to tighten it plenty tight enough without any wrench or anything inside there at all. The nut actually stood still. Now, it may not do it on the other side, but the Lord blessed, and I was able to get that one without any trouble. Next, it's time to replace the dash rail up here. And so just remember, you'll need your rubber washers to go back behind the plate and then to thread it through. I just use my fingers to get them hand tightened and go back with a screwdriver and align all the slots in the same horizontal. So I just kind of force feed that up through there like that. And then with the washer back behind it, I just use my fingers to get it started so that I don't lose the dash rail. And on we go. And lastly, remember that the middle screw has a nut on it, and that nut will be used, I'm pretty sure, to attach the instrument panel light that goes under here. So I'm going to just temporarily attach it now. We'll have to take that back off. Well, guess what's next? Putting the gas gauge in. About that. So for one final look down in the tank here, this is how it looks with this red coat. Pretty cool. Okay, so as best as I can tell, I've got all the old gasket material cleaned off of the threads, the outer ring. Okay, so that should be good. On to the next step. Okay, now to put the instrument panel back on, and I'm going to put my instrument panel light on. And so I just took the nut off the back of this, and I'm going to put the bolt through this hole here. This acts as a stop, so the bolt goes through this hole here, and it's just by feel, if any of that. So then you just roll it up until it goes into that square hole, and then it kind of acts as a stop like that there. If I can find my nut, we can thread it back on and then tighten it up. Screwdriver. And I always turn the slot like that. Shout out to Michael Eisenbeis, the admin of the MAFCA Facebook group, for doing an excellent job of restoring my instrument panel light, by the way. We found a coax cable at Bratton's. It was the last place you can still get it, so if you need to redo yours, check out Bratton's for that. Thanks, Michael. Okay, now one thing I found tricky was the end of this speedometer cable wanted to keep sliding off when I wanted to fish it up through. So I'm just going to use a little tape to kind of attach it to the cable. Okay, let's try it again. Gotta make sure that big piece on the end comes through, because it has the thread you got to have. Okay. Now the first thing I'm going to do is try to re-thread that speedometer cable back into the back of that. It just screws in. Okay, after a lot of grunting, I got the speedometer cable in there. It was not for the light of heart, let me tell you. So next, I actually took a picture of my wiring before I took it all apart. So you may want to consult yours to do that, because it may not match mine. But this is the way that mine went together. So I'm going to put it right back the way that it was before. And the instrument panel light and this solid yellow went to this side of the ammeter here. I'm sorry if you can't see this. Let me back it up a little bit. There we go. And then on mine, the red wire went to this side of the key switch. And then the black solid wire went to the opposite side of the key switch over here. I'll take a screwdriver and tighten that up. And I'm going to go back and check my memory to make sure I had that right, but I used the photograph, and I think that that will agree with the way it was wired previous. It's a good thing I got tiny hands. Alright, on the instrument panel, there's a little notch right here that this instrument panel light is supposed to flip through. So to figure out how to feed all that through there is probably the least fun part of all this. But let's see how we can do. Actually, it looks like it might go better if it goes below that. Let's see. Something like that there. If you had 8 hands, you could do all this with the greatest of ease. Unfortunately, I only have 2, but I am thankful for those 2 as well. I know some are less fortunate and don't even have that. So let's try and see if I can just get one instrument panel screw in. Yes, yes. Okay, break time. I've got a Honeycrisp apple calling my name. Also on the dash rail, be sure not to forget there's 2 screws that go in behind back there. So don't forget those 2, one on each side. Alright, so the next part is to install the gas shutoff valve. And that's this here. And I had me a new one just a few months ago. And the little cigarette filter that comes in the top is very handy for dirty tanks. This is a clean tank, but I think I'm gonna leave it in there since it's already in there in case I need it. The green goop on the threads, I couldn't tell you what it is, but Mr. Ice Advice on the MAFCA group told me it was a good thing to do, and I trust him. So I hope that that was the right application for this.